So I wanted to take the chance to show you guys what I've been up to. I'm almost done the panel. I got these panels out, and right now I'm actually measuring the offset between the holes. So I essentially measure these holes. These are actually imperfect holes. They were made by hand, and I'm absolutely a freak for perfection. So being that as it is, I decided to use a special tool to measure the exact X and Y position of each of these in relation to here. It was actually sort of a pain. I think I have a notes of all of the different measurements that I made to get that information calculated, but I essentially took each hole. I used a T-bar, which is laying around here somewhere. Yeah, this thing right here. In relation to that, I essentially figured out, how far was it in terms of its X position. And then after I calculated that, I actually calculated the height of each hole. And I also used this tool to do that. I calculated the height of each hole such to that I now know the height of each hole and I know how far it is. And I could use a couple of other things to calculate the exact position of these holes down to the very, very thousandths of an inch. Well, actually, the precision is more like 1/16th of an inch because I couldn't be crap to do any more precise than that. But after that, I also went through and I measured out the tops here. You can see how I have a blue line that represents the double check measurements. And as you can see, it's pretty close from my 3D scan design. I only had to do one small minor adjustment here and then one other small minor adjustment here on the height. But this is absolutely perfect. I also took the chance to actually sit down and design this middle panel properly. So as you guys are aware, if you remember, there were rivet holes in all of these. Well, I'm gonna ditch that. I decided actually to make my own radio rack. So the actual radio rack from the old unit is here. And as you can see, it's not exactly a work of precision. That isn't to say it isn't nice, but this is not a precise piece by any means. It wasn't really made for any future proofing either, so I could technically machine all of these out, and then I could buy the tools to do all these rivets and all that fun stuff. But instead of doing that, I decided to spend like 2 or 3 hours designing an absolutely perfect radio rack, and I accounted for everything, even down to the spacing between the panel, such that the lip of the device isn't actually affecting the size of the hole cutout. So actually there's a hole cutout here and the lip will just ever go slightly there, and it'll also do it right here. And it actually worked out such that the exact height that I needed was just barely close. And this is actually close enough to be machined. These are actually the size of the face plates. So these are the landing gear lights and these are the flaps. These are the size of the plates. So these aren't actually the holes that are being cut. These are the size of the plates, and it just so happens to perfectly fit. And the lip of the 507 is going to be right here, so it fits absolutely perfectly. And I calculated essentially everything we would need to get our exact hole spacing for every single device. I had to look at the manuals for every single device, figure out what the screw holes were going to be for each of them, separated them by I think 1/32 of an inch, and went through and calculated the hole profiles such that we can just have these cut and bent. And then you have to, when you're doing bending, you have to adjust the sizes a little bit. And I made this a little bit bigger than the other one. But something I'm also doing is these holes are evenly spaced now, thank God. And you can see these holes on this middle panel here. And essentially what we did with this was instead of having rivets that I'm going to rivet in place to this. First of all, I'm going to ditch the riveting here and I'm just going to use a bent piece of sheet metal. So this is going to bend around the corner. There's even stuff like little small angles to correlate to the shape. And you can also see that here, just ever so slightly, there's an angle to correlate to the shape of the plane. So I've been very, very precise with all of these measurements. These holes are down to the 1/16th of an inch on the exact placement of the actual plane itself. Because again, remember, these holes aren't, these holes are handmade. So they're not going to be precise. That's just the nature of it. But I am a precise machine. I do not accept anything less than complete precision. So I did that, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So here is my send, cut, send, and this is actually the bracket. So I did send, cut, send offers something really useful, and that they let you have standoffs. So let's look at this in 3D. What does it look like? And as you can see, I have bends in all of these, such to that it is already bent, and you see these little flush standoffs? These are flush. These sit flush. So I don't have to spend all that time riveting. I can just pay Send Cut Set $100, have them make it for me out of aluminum, cut everything perfectly, and have it arrive exactly to the specifications that I need it for mounting all of these radio racks. That's how I made my radio rack, and it is going to replace this thing here. And then once you get this radio rack done, all you have to do is, instead of riveting this into place, it actually would sit more like this. Instead of riveting this into place, these are going to be screws now. And that's what I have set up here on this setup. These are actually set up to be screws. You can't particularly see it, but these are set up to be screws. These are also have hardware in them. If you go on the 2D, I know it's bugged a little bit, but these also have hardware in them. So you can just screw the middle panel directly into the thing without having to freaking rivet it. And then anyone who wants to take this off doesn't have to drill out all freaking 20 rivets just to get the freaking upgrade. But yeah, that's why I'm getting rid of this, because I could drill out each of these and then re-drill all the things, but I don't know, having something perfect just would make me so much more happier, so that's what I did. And also it allows us to get even hole spacing. So these are evenly spaced, and now these holes on the panel are evenly spaced. But yeah, it's a lot, but I'm having a lot of fun. And what we're gonna do now is continue taking a look at this. So actually these, if you can't really tell, these are actually different sizes, but I align them pretty much center. And then what I'm doing right now is I'm going through and I'm measuring the hole offsets on each of these. So I can just take these holes that I already did, copy them over to here, and then what I've done here is I've just measured out the offset, so I don't have to do, it took me like an hour probably to measure out these holes, because it was quite a thing. I needed to make sure I had it perfectly level when I measured those holes, and it was just a real big pain doing a bunch of math. So instead I could just calculate them based on offsets, because these are pretty much the same panels. So once I do that, I can actually send these out to be cut. And then once these are cut, ideally, hopefully they arrive perfectly. I don't have to recut them. You know, you have stuff like the potentiometer for the lighting bus. This is the G3X panel, the iPad. I know, I think it's sort of funny, but the iPad takes paramount over the G3X, which is your PFD. But, you know, iPad fails, so you declare an emergency instantly. But yeah, this is pretty much what it's going to be. This is how I like to design panels. I haven't really shown you guys that much of the panel design, so I wanted to just make this quick video just to sort of show you what I've been doing. And this is a project, this panel, you know, I've been working on it for weeks. I just, you know, maybe work an hour or two here and there. You just need to, bit by bit, make sure every single thing is accounted for. For instance, these are the indicator lights, this is the gear switch, these are the gear lights, these are the flaps. You have to go into a lot of manuals, find a lot of dimensions for each thing, but that's just what you need to do to get exact precision. So, but the real challenge is taking something that isn't precise and then turning it into something that is precise, because, you know, without starting over, which is, we can't really do because these go into the fiberglass body. So I'm going to finish measuring these out. We'll send these out to get cut. And then I will actually just skip ahead. Maybe I won't release this video until I actually get those things. We'll just skip ahead to receiving them in the mail. So yeah, I keep doing the snapping thing. I think it's getting a little bit tiring. So I don't know, let's instead, I mean, let's just, you can just go into my Monster Energy, which is what I've been using to create this. So yeah, we'll just do that real quick. Thought I was going crazy, but I actually think that this rack looks like it might be out of spec, like it was assembled incorrectly. I was like doing all this work trying to figure out why are these not lining up, and I measured each of the holes and they're absolutely fine. And I'm looking here, you can see it, but you see the distance between this top and bottom here. You see how it's larger on the top? Look at the other side. It's larger on the bottom. They're supposed to be the same, or at least I'm fairly certain. So this is Everett from the future. I actually contacted Sarasota and Garmin, but apparently I was wrong. They are different on the left and right side, which is super bizarre because it is totally non-standard and different than every other piece of Garmin avionics. But yeah, just keep that in mind if you are doing a GMC 507 installation, and you won't have to redo the holes like I did. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to be showing you guys the panel as well fairly soon. I haven't had as much time to edit videos lately, so I appreciate your patience. I'm going to try to edit all the footage. The project has been coming along quite well. But yeah, you guys are definitely going to see some of the results of the panel in some videos soon. And yeah, have a good one. Cheers.